Hello and welcome to another episode of Raw Chatter. We have got a fantastic story of reinvention today. And I think that those of you who have not heard of Atlas Bars are going to be very excited about hearing from the founder and creator, James Oliver, who is my wonderful guest today. James, welcome to Raw Chatter. Let people know where you are and what started you off on the journey to creating a health food bar.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me, Vicky. It's great to be here. I'm in New York today, and I started Atlas. The journey started really with a love for nutrition and really a curiosity about how what we put into our bodies, how that affects what our bodies are able to do. I was always just really fascinated by that relationship, and I thought it was very interesting. I thought about it almost like a car. Like, say you're born and you have like a Honda Civic, your body's a Honda Civic. I always thought it was cool that by the choices that I make, by choosing what to do with my body, whether it's exercising or how I eat, I can basically turn that Civic into like a Porsche. Like you can change your body and what it's able to do by the choices that you make in a way that is very it's very cool, because there are a lot of things in the world, most things in the world, you do not have control over. But the fact that you do have control over how you choose to treat your body, and that has direct consequences, I was always really fascinated with. So that was like way back my interest in health and nutrition, and then that obviously laid the foundation for my starting a company in health and nutrition.
Which is brilliant. And I love the analogy that you use there, because you can keep Honda Civic values or you can elevate. And that is very much a choice. But when you recognize this, you were quite young, weren't you? You kind of had this realization early on, because there's a lot of people who are probably 3 times your age who still don't get that concept. So where do you think that kind of understanding of what you put in and how you treat your body absolutely affects everything?
So you're right. I was very young. It's actually probably my earliest memories. I think I was probably 4 or 5 when I first heard it, and it hit me. One of my parents said it to me, and they were talking about carrots, because they said that if you eat carrots, it improves your eyesight. And I don't know why, but it hit me, and I was like, wow, that's really cool that I can improve my eyesight by eating these little orange sticks. And so I started eating a bunch of carrots. Obviously, it's not like a one-to-one relationship. It's not like the more carrots you eat, the better your eyesight gets. But the principle is like the directionality of that is true. Like if you do make certain choices, you can improve what your body is able to do. Like a very simple example is like if you are not a runner, you can have never run before in your life, and within 6 months, just by starting to move your body by running every single week, you can go from not ever having run to being able to run a marathon. And I know, because I've done that before myself. So it's just, I've always just thought that was really cool, that the choices you make have such a direct impact on what you're able to do. And that it applies it's not just what you're physically able to do, but what you're mentally able to do as well. The information that you ingest, it directly impacts how your mind processes information and how you can think about things.
Which is awesome, because when I think of nourishment, and this is something that I kind of cover a lot with the clients of mine who tend to have eating disorders or disordered eating, body image, dysmorphia type thoughts and feelings. And very often they just think of nourishment as only being food, but it's not, is it? It's what we read, it's what we listen to, it's what we surround ourselves with. And you were, I would say, an old head on young shoulders when you realized that correlation, but you didn't just realize it and go, oh, this is quite cool. You chose to do something about it.
Yeah. So leading to how I started the company, so in college and university, I was very active. I was doing a lot of, not necessarily like structured sports, but I would do a lot of like long distance stuff, what are now called like ultra marathons. So I was always eating a good amount, and I was interested in nutrition because, as we just talked about, what you consume is going to have an impact, especially if you're doing things like that, on what you're able to do. Yeah. And I knew a couple of different things just from thinking about it. I was pretty sure that, okay, all else being equal, like you probably are always going to be better off if you consume foods that are less processed. Like I was like, I'm pretty sure about that one. And then I was like, okay, well, what else am I sure about on the nutrition side? And I was like, well, I think, again, all else being equal, if you consume less sugar than more, I think that's going to be a pretty good bet long term. And then the last one was protein. If you think about nutrition, there's 3 macronutrients: there's carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. And proteins are an essential building block. They're really not even like a nutrient. They're an essential building block of all life. And so I knew that protein was going to be essential. And so I was like, okay, well, I want to figure out a way where I can get something that's made with like clean ingredients, that doesn't have a lot of sugar, that has protein, and that's convenient, that I can take with me. And at the time, I was going to Shanghai for 6 months to study Chinese, and I wanted something to bring with me, and it didn't exist. Like I wasn't trying to start a company. I wasn't like, oh, I found a gap in the market and I can create this company. I was just trying to make something for myself. And so I ended up asking my mom to help me make a couple hundred of these. And I made them with her, put them in Tupperware containers, brought them with me. And I had them when I was over there, and I was in a homestay. They didn't speak any English. And so it was full immersion. It was great. It was a really good experience. And then I got back, I had 1 year left of university, and I was like, well, if I had this problem, if I couldn't find this for myself, I bet that there are others who would appreciate this too. And so I decided to, okay, is this something that I could share with others? And then I started to kind of move it beyond myself into an actual company.
Amazing. And this is often where the best products are the things that are what you were trying to find but couldn't for yourself. And I think just touch a little bit more on what actually you did find in terms of what is available out there, because there's a hell of a lot of supposedly, in inverted commas, health food bars that are marketed extraordinarily well, aren't they? High protein, natural sugars, no added whatever. And people fall for the marketing that's thrown at them, but they don't tend to look at the ingredients, do they?
Yeah.
So what were you discovering was actually in these supposedly healthy bars?
Yeah, so it's a great question. I think that you just made me think of something that I think is generally true, where when you look at a food product, when you flip it over and look at the label, there's really 2 components of it. There's the nutrition facts, which is like the panel of all the numbers, and that shows all the nutrients. And then there's the ingredient list below it, and that shows actually what it's composed of. And I think a lot of companies kind of choose one or the other. So what I noticed is that there was a lot of products that had like good, clean ingredients, but they didn't necessarily have the best nutrition because they were full of things that maybe didn't have a lot of protein, like had a lot more sugar. And then there are things on the other side that had good nutrition, but they really did not try to make it with clean ingredients. It was more like a chemistry experiment more than it was like made of actual food. And so it was kind of just puzzling to me that a solution didn't exist that had both clean ingredients, but also good nutrition. It just seemed very obvious to me that people would want this. And so I remember, similar to my carrot moment when I was younger, I remember standing in the aisle of a grocery store, and I picked up a Gatorade protein bar, and I was like, oh, Gatorade, is this like a company that is an iconic nutrition company? And I remember turning it over, because on the front of them, they say like 20 grams of protein. I turned it over, and I know this number is accurate because they still sell these. And I think it was like 28 or 29 grams of sugar in it. And I just remember feeling like, I don't even know what the feeling is, whether it was like betrayed or something like that. I was just like, that's very misleading, because it's more accurately called a sugar bar than it is a protein bar, because by composition, there's more sugar in here than there is protein. Yeah, there's 28 grams of sugar, there's 20 grams of protein. And to me, it just frustrates me, because if you're selling a protein bar, you know that people are trying to make better decisions for themselves. They're not picking up a candy bar, they're picking up a protein bar. They're trying to do the right thing. And so when you have a product that is effectively that is more sugar than a Snickers bar, it is effectively like a candy bar. It makes me, I don't know, it just frustrates me, because I think that companies should try and help people, not necessarily lead them astray.
In simple terms, basically, they're just lying to the consumer, aren't they? They are basically saying, we're going to just tell you that this has got one thing that we know that you're looking for. We're just not going to tell you the whole story. And, it's lies by omission, if you like.
Yeah.
And a lot of people just don't even look at the ingredients list. And if you look at these bars, the actual print is so tiny, and sometimes it's hidden. You've got to kind of find where is it on the bar, that people can't be bothered. So you recognize that you didn't want to be putting that kind of stuff into your body, and then so you did your experiment at home, and then after uni, or whilst you were still at uni, you decided to carry on the idea of doing something more with it.
It was while I was doing a lot that my final year. I was training for an Ironman, and I was doing that, and I was obviously doing school, and I was driving Uber. So I was doing a lot of things, but it was while I was still in uni. And what I did is I really wasn't sure if other people would want it. So I actually just put together a survey on SurveyMonkey, and I sent it out cold to a bunch of people and said, like, hey, I haven't even made this yet, but this is what I'm thinking of. Like, would you consider purchasing a product that had all of these attributes to it? And I remember 100% of the people, it got like 50 responses or something like that. And 100% of the people said that they would consider buying it. And so that's when I kind of confirmed my hypothesis that, okay, it's not just me, like there clearly are others who would appreciate this too. And so that gave me the confidence to actually go forward with it. And then I decided to, okay, let me figure out how to actually manufacture this. And so the week after I graduated, I had my first shipment come in, and then I had to figure out how to sell them.
Wow. So this is what I love about talking to you, James. You make it sound so simple. So I just thought, I just go and get these made, and hello, I've got a shipment. So help people to understand, because there's a lot of people who will no doubt have ideas, but it's just an idea because in their head, they go, well, I don't know how to do this. I don't even know how to start. And so they just shelve it. So talk us through the process of where did you go to even find a place to manufacture them for you? And talk about how long it was before you kind of hit on the recipe that you wanted to start off with and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I completely agree that a lot of people, because I started something, have reached out and have asked, okay, I have this thing, I have this idea, like, how do I start it? And the first step is truly the hardest. Like there's this, I think it's a Taoist saying, but like the journey of 1,000 steps, or the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. And taking that first step really is the hardest one to take. So just knowing where to start can be really, really challenging. I think one thing that I've found my mentality change on is that I think people kind of build up like what a business needs to be and how difficult it is to start it. I started Atlas with $5,000. I didn't like raise millions of dollars. I think people, because of headlines, they're like, well, I need to find investors. I need to do whatever. My kind of formula is, okay, come up with an idea that you think people want, figure out how to make that product kind of like cheaply and quickly, and then just see if people actually want it or not, as opposed to spending like years of your life, like doing all this analysis, figure out how to do it. So in my case, I had to make the decision early on, and this is true of any manufacturing. Are you going to manufacture it yourself, or are you going to have somebody else manufacture it for you?
Right.
And this is like companies of all, like Apple has to make this decision. Nike has to make this decision. Both of them do not manufacture their own products. And so actually I use those as kind of models. And I was like, well, I don't really know how to manufacture food. I suppose I could figure it out, but then all of my time would be going into that. And I really need to spend my time on selling and marketing this. So I decided to find somebody who could help me manufacture the product from the beginning. And that is it's a bit of a challenge if you're not really in an industry. I will say that if I were to do it again, I probably would have started by going to some kind of trade conference, because at those type of conferences, there's just such a high density of manufacturers and of suppliers there. And you can have a couple of conversations and kind of get your bearings very quickly. And it can just be overwhelming if you're just kind of searching on the internet, trying to figure out what's what. So I probably would have started there if I were to go back and do it again. And so, yeah, the first thing is, are you going to make the product yourself, or are you going to have somebody else make it? And once you decide that, you have to figure out, okay, well, how am I gonna sell it? How am I gonna let other people know about it? And the good thing is that in the day and age that we live in, it's easier than ever to spread the message on your product with tools like TikTok, especially Instagram. If you can make compelling content and tell a compelling story, it's easier than ever to just let people know what you're doing. So I think that it can be really daunting, but I think it seems a lot more daunting than it actually is.
I think that it's important for people to hear you saying you did make sure that you reached out. You sent out a survey monkey to basically 50 people cold. You didn't know what the response was going to be. And then you reached out and found somebody to manufacture. In other words, you asked people to help you. And I think this is such an important message to get across, because particularly for, I think in today's world, we've still got, I feel it's never moved on in the last kind of 70 years, this reluctance for people to ask for help. And yet when you look at any person who is successful, that's the first thing that they do, isn't it? And we get in our own way because, oh, well, what will people think? And what if they think I'm silly, or the idea they're going to poo-poo it, or whatever. So did you get any kind of rebuttal, or did you at any point through asking to find, someone to help you to manufacture, and then just what the idea was, did you ever feel, oh my God, I don't even know if this is a good idea? Do you ever stop and second guess yourself, or did you just know you were going to do it no matter what?
I probably second guess myself every day, multiple times a day. And I didn't really have anybody who was like, you should definitely do this. I actually had way more people who said the opposite, not because they were trying to be mean or belittle me, but because they were just giving their actual opinion. Like there are two examples I can think of. One was when I was in university, I decided to use a course that I was doing to basically write a business proposal for this. And my professor for it, he was a Harvard professor, so he was an intelligent guy. And he wrote I got a good grade on it, but he wrote at the top of it, like, this is an extremely crowded category. And he underlined it 4 times and capitalized it. He's basically telling me don't actually do this. And then, so that was one person. Then another person, after I'd started, I went to their house. They were a successful food executive, and I told them what I was doing. And he said to me, you don't have any money, you don't have any team, you don't have any experience. There's less than 1% chance that you're successful doing this. And I remember thinking, he may be right, but I would rather try and fail than live with the regret of not having tried at all. And so that was really what propelled me to keep going.
Amazing. And listening to you talking, and you quoted Taoist sayings and just the little snippets. One of the things that I think is important for people listening to understand is you read a lot, you educate yourself. And I think it's really important that people hear that message. You didn't just kind of pluck this idea out and just kind of go for it without kind of having some kind of educational understanding of just what you were doing and how to market things and how to go about even doing this stuff. So tell us, why do you think that you kind of got your courage and you're kind of like, what, I'm just going to try, and if I fail, I'm just going to go for it. Is that to do with your background, or is it to do with just a feeling inside? What do you think gives you that 1% difference? Because there is only really 1%, I believe, of the population who are able to do what you do, to follow through with an idea and make it happen. So where's it come from?
I had to use I'd like to say that I just woke up every day and I was like, yeah, I got this. And that was definitely not the case. I was fighting, I don't know if I would call them demons, but fighting my own psychology every day, because my friends were going off to prestigious jobs, and I was waking up at 4 a.m, driving Uber, and then going to gyms every day, trying to sell these bars. And I was just like, what am I doing? So I had a couple of tools that I used. One tool, and this is a bit maybe hardcore, but I had there's a famous picture from World War II, and it's of the U-boats landing at Normandy during D-Day. And it's taken from the perspective of I think it's the American soldiers who are landing there. And I had that in a large picture above my bed. And every day I would look at that and I would tell myself, well, if you were born 70 or 80 years before, you probably would have had to do something like that. So just be grateful for the opportunity that you have the ability to do this, to try and create something. Because if you were born in a different time in a different place, in all likelihood, you probably wouldn't have had this opportunity. So instead of looking at this as like, man, this is a really hard thing to do, look at it as like, this is a really cool thing that I get to do that I probably wouldn't have been able to do in most of human history. So that was one thing. And then the other thing was just, I really did not. Regret for me is very painful. And I used the fear of regret to basically propel myself, because yes, failing was scary. Just kind of having to write my own script was scary, having to navigate that uncertainty. But all of that to me pales in comparison to zooming towards the end of my life and looking back and being like, man, I wish I had just done that. Because when you get to that point, you can obviously you can wake up every day and decide what you want to do, but there are just fewer days to do that the further you go along. So I really did not want to have that feeling. So yeah, it was a couple of different things, but it definitely was not. I kind of had to forge my mind in a way, condition it to help me get through. And I used a lot of tools, a lot of things to help me along the way.
Fabulous. Did you have any kind of business mentors or masterminds that you were a part of to help you to have conversations, to keep you feeling like you weren't just completely on your own on this journey?
I didn't really have. I use a lot of, as you mentioned, I read a lot. So I use a lot of mentors that I didn't actually know, meaning like podcasts or books. Yeah. And I've always thought that books are so cool, because for whatever, $10 that you buy a book, or if you have a library card for free, you can have access to some of the greatest minds in history. And so I would use that a lot to propel myself and to make myself feel a little bit less lonely on the journey.
Fantastic. So fast forward now, you've got the bars being produced and you start marketing them, and you're out in various gyms and goodness knows what. So take us on the next step of the journey. What happened then?
So the next step of the journey was I was able to sell enough to convince myself that, okay, I think this actually has legs. And I told myself that I was in my early 20s, and the worst case scenario is that I fail and that I learn a bunch along the way, and it prepares me for the next chapter, whatever that chapter is. But once I was able to prove that there was actually a demand for the product, then I figured, okay, well, me driving around is not going to create a larger business. So I need to figure out how to kind of detach my time from what the actual growth of the business looks like. So I knew that e-commerce was probably the best way to do that, because you can have a website, unlike say you need 1,000 storefront, like Starbucks, like they need to have 10,000 locations to do 10,000 locations worth of sales. But contrast that with like an Amazon, they need one website. They need one website to sell to everybody in the world. And so it just made more sense to me, because I was a single person and I was like, well, I think this is really the only option for me.
Sure.
And so I started to focus on e-commerce and selling directly to our customers. I also like it because you own that relationship with a customer, and you can really tell your story and build depth there. And we started to really grow once I did that.
Excellent. And so did you have any knowledge of e-commerce before then, or is it just a case of like, I'm just learning as I go here?
No, I had no knowledge of anything, really. I was starting from zero across the board. I got a degree in economics, but most of that is like, it's somewhat related to money, but it's mostly theoretical about the economy and not really practical information for how to start a business.
So literally you are learning as you go. You set up this e-commerce site, and suddenly people are starting to buy the products. I'm guessing give good reviews, which obviously helps it to grow. You start mastering social media, TikTok, promoting it that way. So what is the product doing now, and where are things in terms of how you are now running the business?
Still running it on the same principles. We're the product now is doing great. We are hitting basically records every single month, and we have a lot of really. It's probably the most excited I've ever been about the business because of all the things that we have that we're working on, both on how we communicate it. We just finished up a clinical study with the product that I think makes us one of the first, if not the only, product in this space that's done a clinical study on their product. So I'm excited about that and to incorporate that into kind of the company. And we're working on a couple of different products that are going to be completely new, and I'm excited about that too. So yeah, I'm across the board. I'm just I'm grateful to be able to do what I do every day. I'm glad that I continued with it, because had I not, I wouldn't get to do what I do. So yeah, I'm just excited and grateful.
You said we there, so I'm assuming that you've got a team who are helping on the product development side of things. Yeah. And do you feel excited about what direction this could potentially take you in?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we have now on a weekly basis, I probably am working with like 10 to 12 different people. And that's a mix of people who are full-time and people who are kind of fractional or part-time. And so, yeah, we, as I said, we're really working on a number of cool things. And I'm just really excited about what we're working on, because I think it's really where food has to go, because we have a bit of an issue in our country right now. And it's not really talked about that much, but it's, from a scale perspective, it's really the largest health crisis in largest chronic health crisis in human history, which is the metabolic crisis, where one out of every, I think we're at the point now where 2 out of every 3 Americans is overweight and 1 out of every 3 is obese. And I think I remember seeing a statistic that I think only 12% of Americans have no metabolic dysfunction. So almost 9 out of 10 have some kind of dysfunction with their metabolism. And obviously that's not sustainable. You can't expect the healthcare system to, it's like there's this flood of water that's flooding a boat, and the healthcare system is trying to bail it out, but the flood just keeps coming. Yeah, it just keeps coming faster.
And your products then are really not just about what's in the product, are they? You're actually educating people. And I think this is the beauty of it as well, because yes, you want to create something that is clean and that doesn't have a ton of sugar and that hits the protein, but also you're sending a message that you as a single human being are responsible for your own body and your health, and you can choose to decide right back at the beginning when you said you've got that choice. Do you want to be a Corvette, or do you want, do you want to be something better than that? And I think the fact that you're marketing it in such a way in that people are going, do you know what? I'm going to try this. And here's the thing, it tastes good. Mm-hmm. And this is the part that I guess you can kind of put your own personality behind, because it has to taste good, doesn't it, to keep people coming back for more?
It does.
Yeah. Right. So I would imagine that the product side and the actual creativity side is, although fun, can also be a little bit frustrating at times.
Yeah, you can really understand. I think Thomas Edison had the quote that I figured, like, I didn't fail 10,000 times. I just figured like 10,000 ways to not make a light bulb. That you really do understand that when you're trying to make a product, because it is just constant iteration, especially I think a lot of people, they might underestimate how complex food is, because it's something that everyone interacts with every day compared to, say, like a software company. Right. But food, I actually think food is more complex than software, because it's biology and it's just not as clean as code is. And something that's as simple as a cookie can be really difficult problem to solve, because you have to basically solve all these different constraints. You have to say, okay, this has to taste good. It has to be made using these ingredients. It has to be made for this cost so that this can be a sustainable business. It has to be shelf stable, because if it only lasts for one day, then that's not going to work. So you have all of these different constraints that you're trying to solve for. And yeah, it can be really challenging to do. So yeah, it's a lot of trial and error. I would say that if you're trying to manufacture a product, you should probably, I think this was another quote that I remember, like, if you make friends with I think the original quote is, if you make friends with pain, you'll never be alone. But I think if you're manufacturing something, if you make friends with failure, then you'll never be alone, because it's just constant. You're always, that's like the default, and the exception is that you get something that works perfectly.
And that's the joy, isn't it? I mean, failure is feedback, and that fail fast and keep moving forward, because that is the only way to succeed. Mm-hmm. So if people are listening and they have not actually heard of Atlas bars, where do they go to find out what your products actually are?
If you search Atlas bars, you'll probably get hit with our site, or Amazon, or Walmart.com. So you can get them pretty much anywhere online, which is still where we primarily sell them. And we are looking at potentially getting into more stores in the near future, but I want to work on a couple of more things before we do that.
So we are basically looking at a whole kind of range of Atlas products at some point. Is that the plan?
Yeah, I think we're looking at making our first one outside of bars right now, that we're working on, that I'm excited about. But yeah, I think we'll probably stay in the kind of in the realm of convenient nutrition, basically trying to make real food as easy and as convenient as possible. I think that's where we'll stay. But yeah, excited about the future.
What a mission, though, because as you say, it is so needed, and things have to change. And it isn't just America. The UK pretty much follows in America's footsteps in terms of health and the trajectory of where it's going. And I think, this is important for everybody to take on board. We've got to take responsibility for ourselves. It's not somebody else's issue, is it? And it's certainly not the healthcare system's issue. So this is the key question, because obviously I'm in the UK, do you ship internationally?
I believe, I'm not 100% sure if we do, because I've never tried to order from a different country. I'm pretty sure if you're abroad, you're able to order it, but if you message us, we can help out with that.
We'll find out. We'll have a little practice run and we'll find out. Fantastic. So I'm going to ask you the question, James, that I always ask my guests. What is the one thing that you would like the listener to take away from this episode?
Well, on the last point that we just talked about, I think it can be really overwhelming to look at all of the food companies, or look at kind of all the problems, and think that I can't do anything about this. Like my actions don't really make a difference. And when it comes to the companies that serve consumers, I think it's important to remember that every dollar that you spend is a vote for basically the future that you want. Because if consumers stop spending money with a certain company, then that company will cease to exist. And if they instead choose to vote with your dollars with another company that you think better aligns with your values and better reflects the future that you want for yourself, for your family, and whatnot, then you have the power to do that. So I think thinking about the way that you spend your money, the choices that you make, you're making votes. You're casting votes for the type of companies and the type of institutions that serve you. It's very similar to democracy, except instead of voting with votes, you're voting with your dollar. So I think that's something that I like to think about, because it's an empowering thing for myself. And I think it gives back power to the people who ultimately are who these companies and institutions should be serving.
Love it. Absolutely love it. So just think on that, folks, when you are choosing what to buy in the supermarket, online, in store, make your money count, because it can make a difference to your health and crucially to your future. So thank you so much for joining me, James. We are going to continue to watch your journey. We will put all of your links in the show notes so that people can find out where you are, and your links to social media and everything else as well. And as always, folks, if you have enjoyed what you have heard, give us a thumbs up, give us a like. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. And also, if you feel that anything you've heard in today's episode could be useful to someone else that you know, send them the link. because the more people who listen to this, the more we get people understanding that you can recreate your life, you can change. It's never too late to become the person you want to be. You're never too old, and as James has shown you, you're never too young or too experienced to follow through with a great idea. Action is what it's all about, and just following and learning as you go. So I'm going to leave you with this quote, as I always do, folks. We only have one life, as far as we know, and one body. So please look after it, because it is looking after you. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Thanks, James.
Thank you.